This is really aggravating, and it has to do with Joe Manchin considering and not ruling out a third-party run as a part of the no labels third-party presidential ticket in 2024. Now, I don't have to explain to you why this type of candidacy could be so disastrous, but I will anyways. It could just serve, while they can say all these things could be brilliant about Joe Manchin running in a third party and the common sense in this, could just serve to help Trump's candidacy and siphon away necessary votes from President Biden. And I've said it before, then we'll dive into the reporting on this. I support getting to eventually a situation where our political structure isn't one that only has two viable parties, where we have more parties and each individual one doesn't hold as much power. I love that idea. But the way you get there isn't by, in my mind, especially in this crucial of a moment, skipping to the end where you have the big presidential candidate and you try to win right then. I think you do a whole lot of work, a whole lot of on the ground structure building to get prominent in smaller races, start getting victories, and get your party one with a track record of wins and an ideology that people start having an understanding of. And you work within the current two-party structure to reform our election systems to make it more viable for a third party in the future. A big one for that is ranked choice voting, and Democrats disproportionately support that. So you would support Democrats who support ranked choice voting. And then as you get these reforms, you make it more likely that real victories can happen on a larger scale. Because right now, all a third party run would do nationally is most likely, especially one like this, hurt the Democratic candidate. But this is always the thing. Oh, we're just going to skip to run for president and do nothing other than threaten the Democratic ticket in a crucial moment. So here's this from CNN. Manchin refuses to rule out third-party presidential campaign, says, if I get in a race, I'm going to win. West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin on Monday defended his flirtation with a third-party presidential campaign, telling voters at a no-labels forum at St. Anselm College in New Hampshire that he had no plans to play spoiler in the 2024 election. Quote, I've never been in any race I've ever spoiled. I've been in races to win. And if I get in a race, I'm going to win. Okay. And then here was him talking about this during this event.
Senator, I mean, we are here talking about a prospective unity ticket. And in all seriousness, as you weigh your options, you've said you're going to decide by the end of the year. Would you consider him as a potential running mate?
John is my dear friend.
Better answer.
Okay? I think people are getting putting the cart ahead of the horse. We're here to make sure that the American people have an option. And the option is, can you move the political parties off their respective sides? They've gone too far right and too far left. If that movement can move, but that can't be done unless they're threatened. The only way you can threaten is have people out there that says, listen, they can't win, either side can't win without the independent. Without that independent, that center left, center right, an independent Republican, an independent Democrat. If they have another option, then they're in trouble. Both parties are in trouble. So they're going to have to say, okay, we better look at this again. I don't think unless we stay over here.
This doesn't even make any sense. Okay, so first, again, let me say, has especially the right wing gone super, super far right? Yes. Now, hold before you go, oh, he's so biased, he's a lib. Let me explain something, as I have multiple times. It's true that we have an issue with extremism and polarization in this country, and polarization instantly makes you know it's twofold. There are two parts of that problem, and so there are two sides. But the parties, the representation of people in power, doesn't reflect that. So I do think there are people out in the abyss, out in the country on the left, who take things way too far, and you could call it too far left. Sure, absolutely. But right now, what is so radical? Tell me about Joe Biden. Tell me right now. You can't, because you're on the other side of a camera watching this hours after I record. But let me walk through, okay? Is the largest investment in infrastructure something that broadly Americans support since the Eisenhower Highway Program? Is that so radical? Is that so far left that we need a more moderate candidate? Is trying to address the fact that 10 million Americans don't have clean drinking water, and spending $55 billion to get clean and reliable drinking water out to communities within the country. Is that so radical? That's so extreme. That's so far left on the part of President Joe Biden. Is expanding broadband out to rural communities, benefiting conservative voters who likely didn't vote for Biden. That's so extreme. All Biden doesn't want to do anything for the red part of the country. Is upgrading airports. That's so extreme. Investing in passenger rail. This list that I went through yesterday. Lowering prescription drug costs. I think it is mind-bendingly, that's right, absurd and extreme to say Medicare shouldn't negotiate drug prices, save the government money, save the taxpayers money, and lower prescription drug costs for Medicare recipients. I think it's extreme to say we shouldn't do that, and Biden pushed for that, and Democrats pushed for that in the Inflation Reduction Act. We could go on and on and on. I think it's extreme to do nothing about the climate crisis, and broadly, that is something that I think a very moderate American agrees with. And so Biden investing in the energy of the future in the Inflation Reduction Act is very reasonable. So it's not to say Biden's a perfect candidate. He's not. We've talked about it, of course. But it's to say this idea that portraying American politics as a situation where both sides are just sprinting in opposite directions is absurd. One side has fallen off of a cliff. The other side has some elements of it that are kind of annoying, but the actual party structure, the actual people in positions of power aren't yet reflecting that. And until they do, it's not an urgent issue. Saying that extremism is an issue on both sides would need to be represented in places that it matters. And right now, show me a Democratic politician in the federal government that is anywhere as extreme but opposite positions as Marjorie Greene, Lauren Boebert, etc. And so to say I'm going to threaten the moderate candidate, Joe Biden, the centrist candidate, Joe Biden, with an even more centrist candidacy makes no sense. And I'll end with this. A really great way, I think, to knock down this talking point of both the Republican Party and the Democratic Party are just trying to become more and more extreme when clearly that's pretty much exclusively the Republican Party right now in positions of power, not on Twitter. Plenty of annoying people on Twitter, of course, and all over the place in regular life. But is that actually an issue? That's what we're addressing here. And they'll say, we're just electing the most radical candidates on both sides. Really? Why is it then? Picture the Democratic primary stage, okay? Boom. You had Bernie, you had Klobuchar, you had Pete Buttigieg, you had Warren, you had Biden and others. Kamala Harris. Who was the most moderate candidate on that stage? Who, at least in the conversation that people were having, who was the most moderate candidate running in the Democratic Party? It was thought of to be Biden, and he won. And then he won the presidency. So clearly, it's not an issue across the board with us not having common sense policies being put forward and common sense candidates. It's exclusively right now in positions of power a right-wing problem. And so to run a candidacy like this, I think, is just completely needless. Let me know if you agree with me, Luke P. Beasley. Speaking of annoying people on Twitter. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to be a part of what makes this show possible, plus get access to the full video version of the show hours before all the clips are able to be uploaded to the YouTube channel, plus get the bonus show on the weekends, you can do so by going to lukebeasleyshow.com/membership. That's lukebeasleyshow.com/membership, and there's a link in the description.